So thank you for doing this for Crimespree. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Your book, Plum Island, which is the first John Corey book, is going to be made into a TV series.
That's what they tell me.
Do you know the station and the time and any of the vital information?
No, we don't have a cable. It's going to be cable TV for sure, and we haven't set that up yet. But I feel confident. There's a lot of people out there who would like to do this, and but we do have the rights are with Sony. So right away we have Sony backing and Sony money, if you will. And the producer is actually going to be Lionsgate, which is a major independent producer. And the actual producer of record is Mason Neufeld, who was my producer for my feature film, starring John Corey. Help me on this. Oh my God, I just blanked. Sorry.
Well, I know there was Gentleman's right.
Right, The Gentleman's Daughter. Thank you. You got it. The Gentleman's Daughter. It was 1997, and May still is involved in a lot of my projects. So he's a producer of record. Lionsgate is doing the actual production, and the company behind it is Sony. And we have a fellow named Ron Bass, who's one of the best screenwriters for TV in the business. And what they're doing right now is they've actually finished the script for the pilot. So now they're casting, and Ben Affleck was interested because Ben Affleck said that one of his favorite books was Plum Island. So we have, hopefully, if not Ben Affleck, we will have somebody else. But we're trying to get a major, feature film man involved, and we'll see if that comes about. But with TV, you don't really need major, talent. You just need, really good people. So I'm confident that, the pilot will go well. And then if the pilot goes well, what they want to do is to develop it into a 10 one-hour segment, what they call a limited series. I guess we used to say mini-series, but now they call it a limited series. So Plum Island will be done first as a pilot and then as a 10-hour limited series. And if that goes well, of course, we'll do the next John Corey book and the next and the next. And
oh!
We're hoping for, so we'll see.
So in other words, it's not going to stop with just Plum Island. It's every year there'll be a new book.
Right. It would be once every season, and that's the plan. I mean, that's what they told me, and this is all based on the pilot. Unfortunately, everything is based on the pilot, and if the pilot is picked up, so to speak, then they go on with Plum Island, and the second season would be whatever book they picked. And I think they're going to pick there's a couple of them, but they were interested in the Lions game first.
Yay!
Also, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say yay, because that's my favorite book.
It was my favorite too, but I think it was nice that they started with the first John Corey book in the series. And the other person that was interested was Aaron Eckhart. If you remember him from Thank You for Smoking. And there's a better chance, I think, maybe I'm thinking about it, getting Aaron Eckhart than
Affleck.
Ben Affleck, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I was going to ask you about it, because I know in your newsletter you mentioned Aaron, and so...
Yeah, and a lot of major actors and actresses who do feature. I've always been reluctant to do TV, but with the cable TV shows that are on now, some of the series are just phenomenal, like House of Cards and Homeland and Mad Men. So you're starting to get a lot of feature film people interested. It's great exposure for them, and the money is not there, I think, and also it's a lot of work, because if it's a series, you're going to do 10, about 10 of these or 8 of these, whatever they decide the series is going to be, and it's a different kind of work for somebody who's used to doing a 16-week, usually, feature film shot someplace, then they go off and they can relax for a while. So I think that the idea of TV is okay now for them, because they understand that cable TV has really come a long, long way. But I think it's just a different job, so to speak, and different commitment.
Are you going to have any control over any of the screenplays? Or are you going to be able to approve or not approve, the writing of it?
That's always the question, isn't it? The short answer is no. The longer answer is we put things in a contract that protect what they call the personality of the character, John Corey. In other words, it's going to be John Corey, NYPD. He won't be a social worker. And we put some language in there to, at least in terms of the main character and the setting. And the setting will be, where the books are set. Because, as we know, a lot of these things that start someplace else because of the book or the screenplay wind up in California because it's maybe easier to shoot there. But it's going to be shot mostly where the books are set. And I have that kind of control over it. But other than that, no, I don't have any real control. But I did call screenwriter Ron Bass, and I said, if you need any input, let me know, and I'm here for you. And I say, you're a pro, I'm a pro, but it's different fields, so to speak. And but I'm here. Give me a call anytime. So.
Well, I hope he calls you. I really do. To at least have you read the final version and make your little changes to it, if you can.
That would be great. Mace Neufeld did that when he was doing The General's Daughter, based on my book with the main character name is Paul Brenner. And, it's a courtesy, so to speak. I mean, if you don't get it in the contract, it's a courtesy. And what they say in the business for the authors who wrote the book is all you have to do is take the check, cash it, and say thank you, and you go away. But sometimes when the author is involved, it could be, it could be a good thing. I mean, Puzo wrote The Godfather script, screenplay, and William Goldman wrote Marathon Man, the book and the screenplay. So you see, these are all also successful, I think, when the author is involved. I don't want to meddle. This is there. Because TV is a different format, and it'd be very difficult for me to maybe understand the 10 one-hour segments as opposed to a feature film screenplay, which I have worked on, and they're kind of 90 minutes and they're done. Beginning, middle, end. This is different. This is almost like, it's like it is a series, and you're going to end it every week on some kind of a high note. So different kind of writing. These guys know what they're doing, and I just got I have my fingers crossed at least that this will be a good screenplay and that the production will be good. Everything is there for a good production, including, of course, the financial backing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just, like I said, I mean, your fingerprint is so over John Corey that you would think that they would want you to look at it and say, I don't really think you got this right, or yeah, this is great, or whatever. So hopefully they will.
Well, and you say, and I believe the same thing. And the director and producer May, the screenwriter is a different story. The screenwriter is a writer. I'm a writer. He's a writer, and you're going to get a clash of egos. This is what happened with The General's Daughter. You used to have to butt heads a little bit. But the producer would like to hear from the novelist because if you can improve on it, they're happy to have your input, especially if they're not paying you. I would just do it, to do it. But screenwriters, like all writers, have very thin skin, as we know.
Mm-hmm. Do we know who the director and producer are yet, or we don't?
No, we don't. But the producer would be Mace Neufeld. The director, I don't know. That's a good question, and they don't have a director yet, and they don't have a cast. But again, with Sony and Lionsgate, I think they're going to have no trouble finding who they want.
Mm-hmm. So this is my description of John Corey. Tell me if you agree or disagree. Overconfident, wisecracking, not politically correct, street smart. He has some sex appeal, egocentric, loyal, dedicated, hides sensitivity behind jokes.
Yeah, that sounds good. I like confident. He is confident, but he has some interior thoughts that are sometimes, we know that sometimes he's a little bit unsure because of the situation, and he's not so overconfident that he's stupid about it, but and his wife
interesting because in Plum Island, your fans, the readers, aren't going to see Kate. They're going to see Beth as the female lead.
Yeah, that's interesting too. And this is, and I think we spoke about this once. When I wrote Plum Island many years ago, I didn't expect it to be a series. I'd never done a series character before, never wanted to. So John Corey, it was a standalone book, and that was the end of it. But then, the fans so loved this character that I continued it as a series. And the second book is when he meets his about-to-be wife, Kate Mayfield, on an assignment. She's special agent at FBI. And Plum Island is a standalone book, and this is why I thought they were going to make it as a feature film, just the one John Corey one shot. But they really want to continue it as a series. It'll be interesting to see what they do. And I said that to Ron Bass, the screenwriter, that the first one was standalone, and he had read them all. And he said the same thing. He said, we can transition him from this first standalone book into a continuing series with his new job in the Joint Terrorist Task Force, which is battling domestic terrorism.
Right. And what's interesting to me is how they're going to transition from Beth to Kate, because at the end of Plum Island, it looks like John and Kate are going to do well together, and John and Beth, sorry, are going to do well together, and then all of a sudden, the next book you have Kate in there. So
this is what happens when you kill off. I won't give it away, but when you kill off the female lead, one female lead was killed off in the Plum Island. The second one was still alive and breathing at the end, and it would seem that would be the lady that he would be involved with. And for all I know, they do have some leeway. They've got a lot of leeway. But they can't go totally crazy with it. But one thing they did say, and I did remember that they mentioned that they're not quite sure about his romantic interests. So that might change altogether for all I know.
Oh, in other words, that they wouldn't have Beth and him romantically involved, just like partner kind of thing.
Yeah, well, they're kind of hinting that, an action-adventure hero who's married might not be the best thing, but they do like the character of Kate Mayfield. They think that they were talking about X-Files and a few other ongoing series where the lead characters, male, female, are maybe romantically involved, but if nothing else, there's a lot of sexual tension, and that if they're not married, it might come across in a better way. And I kind of agree in some cases. I'm almost sorry I got John married, but on the other hand, he is married, and well, the book I'm writing now, Kate is on a business trip, and she's not in the book, and it's developing differently, and I can see the difference between having married lead characters and not having one of them around. So we'll see what happens with this book, and we'll see what happens with Plum Island, and hopefully continuing on with the series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would be interesting to me, the tension that they would create between Kate and John, and like fans of yours would know that there's more to the tension, but other people might not. So it will be interesting. The setting, are you going to film Plum Island in New Jersey? Do you know, are they going to do that?
New York, off the east end of Long Island, which is geographically New York, or politically New York, but it's closer. I think it's closer to actually Rhode Island than any place. I looked on the map. That's a question that we asked, before we, agreed to this project, which was, this thing has to be set in New York, but would they film it in New York? It could look like New York. I don't know. It's a good question. The TV series, a lot of TV is filmed in New York now, which is good, and there's no cheaper or any more difficult to do it, or more expensive to do it here than LA is. So they kind of equal. It depends on maybe where the principals are. No, I have to see, but the setting will look like New York. For all I know, it's Burbank, California, but it's supposed to be New York. So it'd be great if they filmed around here.
Yeah.
At least visit the set once in a while.
I agree. Well, you could always fly out to California and come here too.
Yeah, I could. My son is in the movie business, and he's in L.A. He's also in New York. He's both places, and he's actually interviewed for a job as a screenwriter, and they're talking about it now. So he may be one of the screenwriters. You know, there's teams of screenwriters in TV land. A feature film is usually one screenwriter. It's like being an author. But in TV land, because of the nature of it, and, 1 hour segments week after week, they need a team. They're looking for a couple of people on the team, and he may be one of them. And he knows Plum Island well. He actually started a screenplay based on Plum Island for feature film. So he gave it to the producer, Mace Neufeld, who he knows. And so I think, it'd be good for me to have a Trojan horse in there.
Yeah, I was going to say, if he's chosen, he should definitely consult his dad a little.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. As a concept.
So, do you think whatever a female lead they have, whether married or not married, the one thing that I really like about your stories, and both Beth and Kate have this is they match John, sarcasm to sarcasm.
Yeah, I hope they get the politically correctness of John Corey. You sometimes wonder why they buy a property and why they decide to put it on the screen, whether it be small or big screen. After you've seen the changes that some of these people make in from the book, and you don't know if they're buying the story or they're buying the fact that the author has already got a built-in audience that they hope will come to the theater or tune in on TV. So sometimes they're buying the author, sometimes they're buying the main character. It sounds like the case here. And but sometimes when they buy the main character, they change the main character, and all the things, ironically, that they liked about it somehow don't make it to the script and don't make it to the screen. So you have no idea. I mean, I've dealt with this before. I mean, I've had two of them TV movies made. One was Mayday. That was a CBS TV movie. The other one was Word of Honor. That was a TNT movie with Don Johnson. And the Mayday was with Aidan Quinn. And they kind of captured the main characters. I was pleasantly surprised. But they kind of also didn't quite get into it as deeply as I did in the book, who these people are and what motivates them. But they can't sometimes on the screen. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully with a series they'll be able to, at least, like even like in a back, kind of remembering something or, someone saying something. I mean, because that's, to me, the essence of your books, besides a really good plot, is your characters. You have such strong characters, and their personality is so strong that, it's like you laugh sometimes. I'll give you a line that because I went back and I read Plum Island, and there was this line that, I mean, it's like silly, but it just kind of made me chuckle when John is like changing and he turns around to Beth and says, "Now don't peek." And she goes, "Well, do you mind if I stare?" And then she turns around and she goes, "Oh, boxers, I thought you would be a jockey kind of guy," as regarding his underwear. I mean, it's like little things like that are and hopefully they would put him in, and that sarcasm is throughout the books.
Well, but you did say, because it was a series, and this is one of the advantages of a TV series, you got 10 hours as opposed to feature film where you have 90 minutes. And when we see feature films now, it's like so much action adventure, you don't even know who these characters are. They're so cardboard. But when you watch some of these good series on TV, Mad Men being one of my favorites, you really get to understand the characters. And they have the luxury of doing that with, 10 hours, 12 hours, whatever they decide to do. So, it depends to a large extent on the screenwriter, and if they're really picking up on what the novelist, wrote. And Ron Bass sounded good. He sounded like he had a sense of humor, and that he kind of got the character. So we will see.
Yeah, I hope so, because I mean your silly type of jokes it makes the plot even better. It enhances the book.
Not everyone would agree, but amuse myself too. And if I'm not entertained or amused, I don't think the reader's going to be entertained or amused. And so many books are just straightforward, and there's no nuance and no jokes, no sarcasm, and people don't sound like real people. And this is what life is about. Life is about tangential things, and we are all distracted by little things like John Corey is. He's kind of, he's in the middle of a big case and his stomach is growling. He's really worried about, his next meal instead of somebody trying to kill him. But I think that's the character. Maybe that's close to life as opposed to the kind of cartoon characters we get in some novels, which will go unnamed.
Right. No, I agree with you. I agree wholeheartedly. Speaking of life, it seemed in this book there were really relevant issues to today. There was biological germ warfare you talk about, genetically engineered viruses, bio-terrorism, government surveillance. I mean, how about that one, right? With the NSA today. Government cover-up. Do you agree that people that are going to watch it today are going to feel like they're right at home?
Yeah, probably the screenwriters, the team, they will pick up on a lot of this. They might even change some of it. This will obviously be contemporary, and there's no reason to make it a period piece, because I think I wrote the first book about 13 years ago. So you can be assured they're going to kind of plug in everything that's going on now, and they'll play off of that a little bit too. The books, I think the stories themselves are timeless, but technology has changed. Plum Island, for instance, when I wrote the book, I made a point that this place was, a possible site of biological warfare experiments, and it was not really well guarded. But since 9/11, Plum Island is down. It used to be under the Department of Agriculture, and they had some, kind of rent-a-cops there. But this place is like might as well have been a nuclear facility for all the damage it could do if any of these pathogens escape. And now Plum Island, since 9/11, is under the jurisdiction of the Homeland Security of all things. So I don't know how they're going to play it, because the world has moved on, and there is better security there. And I don't know how they're going to, deal with that element of the book, which was that this place was unguarded, because now it is guarded. So, but that's not my problem. That's the screenwriter's problem.
Mm-hmm. Do you think? I mean, would you want the Corey was not politically correct. I mean, in everything he did, he was not, whether it was his sarcasm or even how he conducted himself as a detective. Like, for example, there was a quote you had in Plum Island that he said, "Sometimes you have to put the badge away and keep the gun." Would you suggest to Bass that, hey, you got to keep this in there? I mean, that's what makes John Corey.
Yeah, maybe hopefully they'll find some nuggets in there that'll make it to the screenplay. But one of my earlier books, Gold Coast, was made into not a movie, but several screenplays. And in every screenplay, I'm happy to report, they just missed the whole thing. They missed the humor, they missed the sarcasm, they missed everything. And the screenwriters were not good, and they were fairly famous people who I won't even mention, because they were well known, people who were hired for this. And what happens is the ego of the screenwriter gets in the way of, sometimes the story, but often it's the dialogue that suffers the most, because they think they want to write their own punchy lines. But there are other times where they will take, like they did in General's Daughter, whole exchanges of dialogue and just use them the way the author wrote it. And as I said, you have to wonder why they buy this stuff sometimes to make into a movie or a TV show if they're not really using it. And that's the great mystery that all novelists ask themselves: why do they buy my book? They've changed it so much. So we'll see.
Yeah, hopefully not. I would describe you the way you write is your books have tension, suspense, and humor that you can see mainly through the dialogue and the characters. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I like the dialogue, the dialogue. That's why maybe I should be a screenwriter. I can do dialogue well without having to put all this other stuff in about time of day in the Western. I'm not great on descriptive narrative, and people don't really want it today. They're looking for the punchy dialogue, and the dialogue can carry the whole story. And every screenwriter knows that, and everybody who's ever written a play knows that. Not dependent on what the setting is. It's dependent on the interaction between the people. So dialogue, when you read a Shakespeare play, you see the dialogue is carrying the whole thing. And when you see it produced, no matter what background they're using, it's almost irrelevant. It's just, it could be a costume, thing with, everybody's dressed like a Shakespearean. It could be done in modern day garb, and we've seen that too. And that doesn't matter. It just really matters what these people are saying, because ultimately, all stories are about people, and people want to read about people.
Mm-hmm. Let's transition from the first John Corey book, which is Plum Island, to the latest book, the one you're now writing. Can you give us a little heads up about it?
Yeah, I was actually sitting at my desk. It's right in front of me. We have a title which I don't think will change. It's called The Quiet End, or maybe A Quiet End. And Corey is now no longer with the anti-terrorist task force. He has been sort of, in some ways, demoted or put out to pasture in a group called the Diplomatic Surveillance Group. These are people that actually exists as called a special surveillance group, but I've made it diplomatic. And what they do is they follow people from the foreign embassies. Here in New York, we have all the UN delegates and all the UN diplomats. They need to be followed. Not every country, but certainly some of the Islamic countries, and North Korea and Iran and whatever. So this is what he does. He's on stakeout, he's on surveillance, and he's assigned to watch the Russian UN mission one Sunday morning. And one of the guys who comes out of the mission is Beryl Korchev, who's a bad guy, and he's under diplomatic
protection
credentials, right? But really he's SVR, which is the old KGB. And he gets in his car, and Corey and his partner, who is not Kate Mayfield, but another woman, follows him. And so the long and the short of it is this book is not about Islamic terrorism, but what I'm working on now is really about the resurgent Russia. And I started this long before the Ukraine, and long before the Olympics, long before everything. But when I started the book, Putin was still beating his bare chest, and I saw a story there. I saw a story about a resurgent Russia, which I thought would be in many ways more interesting than Islamic terrorism. But that's what this book is about. Corey is on to something, and the Russians are up to something, and it's something big. So, but I won't give it away.
Mm-hmm. So you still have, though, John Corey kind of battling the bad guys.
Yeah, definitely the bad guys. We just changed the bad guys. We changed them to the Russians, and the Cold War is over, as Corey said, but he thinks the Cold War is back. And it's kind of the theme of the book, that relations have deteriorated so much that. But another subtext of the book is that the American intelligence community and the State Department and the administration is more concerned about Islamic terrorism, but Corey sees the Russian threat as more long range, and he calls it existential. There's more possibilities for problems with the Soviet Union, or the ex-Soviet Union, rather than there is with the Islamic terrorists who are acting often independently and without great organization. This is a superpower, really, and I think it's kind of playing into what's happening in the news today. And I wish the book were out tomorrow, but it's still on my desk.
Give the Russians time. I'm sure they'll find another country they want to invade, and it will be relevant. Right. Is there anything you want to add that I haven't asked?
Well, just that, again, TV series seem to be the thing that's happening, and although I resisted it for many years, I decided to go ahead with it, and we're still trying to get Gold Coast made into a feature film, and also with the John Corey TV series, because there's 6 books in the series, Sony, who controls the rights to the character, said that they would consider making a feature film, depending on how the series goes. And this doesn't normally happen. Normally, as we know, a good big movie that's done well will become a TV series, but it's rare that a TV series gets spun off into a little feature film, although it's happened before. So we'll see. I think, there's a lot of new stuff out there with ebooks and cable TV, and I'm feeling that, even though I've been at this business for 30 years, it's kind of reinvented itself in many ways. And I've got, a number of books left to write, and I think hopefully if we see Plum Island do well, and it could be very quickly, it could be as early as this September, because the TV moves very quickly. I should have mentioned that. A feature film would take years to get it on the screen, but TV could probably pop on the screen if they get moving on it as early as September. I'm looking forward to maybe seeing it on a small screen this year.
Well, we at Crimespree thank you for giving us this interview, and we look forward, and we're highly anticipating a very good story. So,
Thanks, Lee. Pleasure as always.
Okay, thank you.